Welcome to The Other Side of the Page, a bookish podcast where we yap about the books we love
and the songs that give us main character energy.
We're here to sift through the chaos that is our TBR.
And to let you know why a book might just be your next favorite read.
I'm Britt, dramatic plot twist lover and champion for MMCs needing to be more pathetic and down bad.
And I'm Hannah, reader of at least 5 books at once and a detailed fantasy map enthusiast.
Every Wednesday, press play on a brand new bookish episode.
Stay up to date with the books we will be covering by following us on social media at othersideofthepagepod over on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads.
And don't forget to follow, rate, and review the podcast a shining 5 stars on your preferred platform because it helps us so much with visibility.
This week, we are talking about The Wedding People by Alison Espach.
Yes, we're going to be talking about our song choices alongside of the plot, chatting about our favorite moments, and there are some hilarious ones in this book. So go ahead and grab yourself an iced coffee.
Or iced chai.
And let's turn the page together.
Dear reader, here is the synopsis of The Wedding People. It's a beautiful day in Newport, Rhode Island, when Phoebe Stone arrives at the Grand Cornwall Inn, wearing a green dress and gold heels, not a bag in sight, alone. She's immediately mistaken by everyone in the lobby for one of the wedding people, but she's actually the only guest at the Cornwall who isn't here for the big event. Phoebe is here because she's dreamt of coming here for years. She hoped to shuck oysters and take sunset sails with her husband, only now she's here without him, at rock bottom, and determined to have one last decadent splurge on herself. Meanwhile, the bride has accounted for every detail and every possible disaster the weekend might yield, except for, well, Phoebe and Phoebe's plan, which make it that much more surprising when the women can't stop confiding in each other. And we think you should read this book if you want a book that really kind of deals with letting go, but also the beauty of an unlikely friendship and just kind of going through life's quirks.
Totally. Now, you might want to avoid this book if any of the following are potentially triggering for you, specifically like these 2 heavy up front, which is a suicide attempt and suicidal thoughts, as well as infertility, death of a parent, miscarriage, infidelity, vomit, cancer, animal death. There's quite a few things in this book. While it is there's a lot of levity here, this book does cover some very heavy topics.
And with those triggers, too, we want to put out there that we do understand life's challenges can be sometimes difficult. And whether you're facing mental health struggles, emotional distress, alcohol or drug use concerns, or just need someone to talk to, there are caring counselors are here for you at the 988 Lifeline, and you are not alone.
Yes. So the 988 Lifeline is available 24/7, 365. Your conversations are free and confidential, and you can call or text the number. And that is available to you if you need it, are in crisis, or you know someone who might.
Yes. Very helpful information.
Absolutely. And now we're going to move into more of the lighter part of the podcast, and we're going to tell you our song choices.
Yes. My song is Happiness by Taylor Swift.
And my song is It's Time to Go by Taylor Swift.
Another Taylor episode.
Shocker to no one. All right, now we are moving into our Pages Turned and Bridges Burned section. This means that we're going to be discussing The Wedding People cover to cover, and so spoilers are ahead. So if you have not read the book and you want to, go ahead and pause the podcast, come back once you have. If you've read the book, you're just here for the vibes, welcome on in. We're going to get started with our theme lyrics of why we picked the song.
Yes, so my theme lyric is, there'll be happiness after you, but there was happiness because of you too. Both of these things can be true. There is happiness. And I mean, this song, right, is about a divorce. So it's very appropriate for Phoebe and Matt's situation where they're getting divorced and Phoebe's kind of struggling with being happy after him because she thought she was happy with him and like what that looks like. And I think this song just really kind of embodies how like she's accepting that there will be happiness after him and after that. And later in the song talks about like the new her, like the new me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's how Phoebe ends the book, is like she's getting into that new persona for herself.
Yeah. And I remember Happiness was my second song choice for this one. And our songs are very much, they go hand in hand with each other. And so It's Time to Go is really about saying that there's another theme lyric that I almost picked, and I'm going to reference it later, but it's sometimes giving up is the strong thing. And so my actual theme lyric that I picked, though, that I think really represents Phoebe is that old familiar body ache, the snaps from the same little breaks in your soul, you know when it's time to go. And it's that the monotony of her and Matt's life and the way that her career kind of got shoved aside, and the things that she continually sacrificed in the name of their relationship. And they were making these small little fractures, the little breaks in her soul, until one day it was just collapsed and a little too much. And even though you know when it's time to go, sometimes it's really hard to step away from it. And I feel like both this song and Happiness have a very similar message in them, and they're both fittingly from Evermore. So,
Yep. But we are so excited to talk about this book again. If you've been here for a while, we talked about this book back on our previous podcast, but it's still a book that we talk about a lot and recommend. So we thought it would be fun to revisit it a little bit later.
I know it's been a minute since it's probably been a year and a half since we've read it.
I think so.
Somewhere around there. So the thing is, I still remember so much about this book. And I think that's what makes a book really phenomenal is, I know a lot of people say like they don't remember anything ever. I might be the exception. I tend to like remember very innocuous details about books that I love. And this one I just remember so deeply. Like I remember like Neck Pillow and Bun and just the boat, the car. Like there are so many things that I vividly recall from this book. So I'm really excited that we decided to revisit her.
Yes. So the book takes place over a week, and it's like through like the wedding week prep. And so like the synopsis says, we have our main girl Phoebe. She arrives at the hotel. She's getting divorced and left everything back at home, like even her luggage. We're like, okay, what's her plan? Whatever, right? And she immediately starts noticing how busy the hotel is. And she's the only one there not for the wedding. And like you said, she like picks out these wedding people and calls them like, oh, Neck Pillow and High Bun and the Gyms. And she says like the wedding people. I thought that comparison was funny. It's like Hitchcock, the birds, like the birds are everywhere. Like the wedding people are there.
And the first glimpse that we get of our bride, Lila, and Lila is high strung. She's a bride who knows what she wants. And she's also a bride and a person that has never been told no a day in her life. Right. So Phoebe and Lila get into the elevator together, and Lila asks, like, are you in Gary's family? Are you in my family? Because, with weddings, you have extended family that may be like friend of a friend, all that stuff. And Phoebe goes, nope, I'm here to kill myself. And Lila goes, the fuck? No, you're not. Nope. You're not ruining my big day because you want to end your life. That's actually not happening. This is my wedding week. I've waited my entire life for this. How dare you come in here and try to do this to me? So actually, no, you're not dying. Congratulations.
Yeah. Like, okay. And so throughout the book, we do get like flashbacks. We get an insight of Phoebe's life before coming to the hotel and how she wanted to have a baby. She had a miscarriage, which is very rough. We meet her friends, Tom and Mia, and who are like her best friends at work.
Yeah.
And they had a baby 9 months ago, and Tom, the husband, like attempted suicide, and I was very open about his depression. And Phoebe invites him over a lot. And she says, like, because she wants to have friends and, they have the baby and it's like the life that she thinks, right? One night, her husband, ex-husband, doesn't come home from work. And Phoebe's like, where is he? And then he like gets home and he's like, I won this thing. And then they go to the reception and Phoebe's like, Matt's starting to act weird. And then Matt comes home and is like, hey, I'm in love with Mia, our friend that comes over every week. Like, bye. And Phoebe's like, okay, I'm done. And that's how she ends up at the Cornwall.
Yep. Now, she's here again. Lila's trying to like, no death. But Phoebe is like, I'm going to have a great last meal. So she calls up room service, but they paused it due to the wedding's opening reception. Instead, there's a knock on Phoebe's door. And it's, of course, who? Lila, our bride. Phoebe's smoking. Lila corrects her that she can't even smoke on the balcony because it's a non-smoking room. Phoebe doesn't give a shit because she wants to die, right? Now, here's the kicker, though. Phoebe's room has a better view from the balcony than Lila's does. And so this is an immediate problem because Lila's supposed to have the best room at the Cornwall. And I loved the contrast of Phoebe to Lila, where Phoebe is destitute. She is at her wit's end. She's ready to end it all. Like she has accepted. She came to the Cornwall with no luggage, just the fancy dress that she never got to wear with Matt, and said, this is how I'm going to go out. And then you have this bride who's like, your room view is like not as good as mine. Lila is actually there at the room. Again, she knows Phoebe is going to try to die. She is there to convince Phoebe to not kill herself, but no reason whatsoever actually is in regards to why Phoebe should stay. It's so that she doesn't ruin the wedding. All selfish reasons for Lila. And it's, again, the topics are so dark, but the way that the characters are written and the way that everything is written, it is handled in a way that is so like, I don't like, I could physically, like, I could see this happening. I could see these two people sitting next to each other, like having a conversation. Everyone felt so real, even in the most insane situations.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments in the book is when Phoebe does tell Lila that she has something in her teeth. And Lila's like, no one said that to me, like, all day. And she's like, I haven't eaten anything since. And then the front desk, like, they call down and the front desk, like, goes to CVS to get her floss and everything. For it. I just thought it was funny. But Lila also says that her mom thinks that she shouldn't marry Gary because her mom thinks it's the same mistake that she made in marrying Lila's father, which is all right. And they like have a conversation about like what's one thing you're capable of doing right now instead of crying. And it's like take a long bath, which like ties in later, I think, with everything. But so Phoebe ends up taking the pills and listens to speeches from the wedding people from her room and realizes that she doesn't like this feeling and runs to the bathroom to puke it up.
Yep. And then when she wakes up, she decides to go check out the hot tub. And she is laying with her back to the jets, eyes closed, when a man joins her. And so they have a conversation, and she's pretty open with telling him, like, I came here with the intention to take my own life. She doesn't get his name. She is bold, though, and basically is like, well, I'm here to die, so I would like to fuck you, is what she essentially tells him. And he just says he's with someone. And that's, their little interaction.
Yep. And so Lila comes and knocks on Phoebe's door and says, I knew you couldn't do it. And Phoebe makes a comment how Lila has like little curiosity about other people and is surprised that Lila didn't walk in and say like, how are you? Like,
yes.
And Phoebe even says, how are you to her therapist? And like, I felt that, right? Like just always trying to be that courteous person, right?
Same.
And aware. So Lila forces a conversation with Phoebe about her view and how they talk about how, like, she says Gary is just Gary. And her friends just keep saying he's wonderful. And she's like, I don't know, he's just Gary.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but I was getting vibes. I'm like, what is their relationship like, Lila and Gary? Because I feel like it's not deep and it's not there.
No.
From this early on, too.
And especially, like, not just the way she talks about him, but the way that she interacts with people in general made me think that she's not capable of anything beyond a surface level relationship. Lila then invites her sailing because she needs a minimum amount of people on the boat, and most of the guests are hungover. And again, I love that every interaction that Phoebe is forced into is with some sort of selfish backstory or like underlying reason for Lila. Now, they ended up addressing some of the details like wearing clothes because like she's supposed to participate in things. And I think doesn't she
like her mom's
from
right?
Yeah. She got some clothes from Lila's mom, and then they ended up going shopping like later on too. So the girls all drive together, the groom's meeting them down at the wharf, and we have high bun and neck pillow naturally. We also meet Marla, who's the groom's sister, and then we have Juice, aka Mel, who is the groom's daughter.
Yep. And then on the drive over, Lila tells a story of their engagement in Germany. And they get to the wharf, and Gary is the guy from the hot tub.
He sure is.
And like Phoebe's about to acknowledge that like her and Gary already met. But then Juice, the groom's daughter, is like, my dog died. And like it was like her digital dog, like her little Tamagotchi-ish thing.
Yep.
And the Phoebe's like steps in and helps Juice deal with that. And I don't think we mentioned it yet, but Gary was married before and his first wife died of cancer, and that's Juice's mom.
Yep. They have vacations in a cup, which sounded lovely. There were so many, just like, from what I'm remembering too, there were so many small quirky things that happened in this book that like really immersed you into the world of these wedding people. And low-key, all of the wedding people kind of sucked in their own regard, which I also really loved because no one in this book was free of flaws and no one in this book was 100% likable, which I thought was super interesting. But they have a day of sailing, and Jim, who's also part of the wedding, And Phoebe end up flirting a little because obviously she can't flirt with Gary anymore because Gary is getting married to Lila. But the thing is, she really ends up bonding with Juice, which is really cute.
Yeah. And then so when they get back to the hotel, Phoebe takes a bath and Lila breaks in and is like, I have no maid of honor. So guess what, Phoebe? You are now maid of honor. I think there's also like a scene where she like replies back to like her boss and is like, hey, not coming back. Bye.
Yep.
And then one of my other favorite parts, I guess I have a lot of favorite parts here, but Juice and Phoebe go out shopping, shoe shopping and dress shopping, and they kind of bond. And Juice calls Lila a bitch and then is like confused why Phoebe isn't upset that like she just called her BFF a bitch because like supposedly Phoebe and Lila are BFFs because
Of course.
Phoebe is the maid of honor. And the line is like, they're talking about when like Lila was born and Juice goes like, congrats, mom and dad. It's a bitch that like Lila just came out like always like that, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's Juice was really like a main character here. Now, she complains though that she can't talk to her father about her mother because Lila gets upset about it, which given her track record and character makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And there's this line that says he's so weird around her, like she's this queen or something. He'll like put out a glass of white wine when she gets out of the shower, like her shower was so traumatic. And she basically says like she has nothing in common with Lila, and Phoebe suggests that perhaps she has air and food in common.
Which is just, I think it's funny.
I know.
And then they like come across a dog named Frank, and Phoebe is like, oh, we're going to take Frank, but the hotel doesn't allow dogs. So the whole way back, they're like trying to come up with like ways around it and new names for the dog. So Phoebe, while they were out, bought clothes. She returns the borrowed clothes and ends up having like a drink with Lila's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then her mom kind of talks more about how she thinks that Lila always looks for men to solve her problems and to help her be a better woman, which like isn't good, right? And her mom has a quote that's like, my daughter doesn't fully love people yet, not the way she will. Her mom calls calls Phoebe Pamela and like just like the wrong names. Lila's mom asks if like she's embarrassed of her. Phoebe's like, no, she's angry. And then Phoebe like takes her off guard by saying that like Lila's mom is also angry at like Lila. And I just think that's like an interesting dynamic because, you know, it's just you like see the reflection of like yourself and your mistakes, but also like what does that do like to your daughter or your mother, right? Vice versa. And they like their family like owned an art gallery, and like Lila ended up like the first time they met or something, one of their first times, gave a priceless painting away to Gary. And Patricia's like, why would you do that, Lila's mom? And kind of a quote about that dynamic too is from the book is it's not easy being angry at your own creation. It's like being angry at yourself. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And then we're off to the bachelorette party. And I feel like the way that we're talking about this book, it feels kind of disjointed, but this episode would be our first episode we did on this. You guys, I think it was close to probably 2 hours before we edited it down. So we're just doing our favorite, bits and pieces of this. If you've read this book, you understand. Now we start the bachelorette party with a quote unquote water journey, which is very fitting for the baths and, they're able to relax a little. Now here's my favorite part of the whole book. So they get back to the hotel. They rented a vintage car. Lila was so specific about the type of car that was needed. And of course, Lila's been harassing the staff at the Cornwall since they started planning this, right? Long before they arrived. So they get the vintage car. They come back and Jim comes out to break the news that someone fucked the vintage car in the parking lot. Yes, that is correct. You heard that right. Someone fucked the car, like the tailpipe. Yes, that happened. And
it just still like shocks me every time.
I know. And it's so like, first of all, like how did she come up with this? Second of all,
it had to have happened. I mean,
swear
it probably did.
Like there's no way.
People are weird.
So weird. Now, here's what's even crazier though, is that Lila is so upset by this. And like, she's so upset at the hotel staff. And they're like, what did you want us to do, madam? We can't help that a man put his dick in a tailpipe. Yeah. Like, I fear that we cannot help that situation.
Right.
But yeah, she is pissed. And then they try to like make it up to her because they break out the penis straws at the old tavern in America, or the oldest tavern in America, rather, because they are #classy. And again, it's a bachelorette party. And, you know,
Right.
I do fear that might have traumatized Lila more given the car fucking situation, but, you know.
And then they do tarot readings by
Mhm.
time. In Phoebe's reading, it like kept coming up like you are here, which felt like
Mhm.
very reassuring for her.
Yes.
And so they finish the night at the Boom Boom room, and
Mhm.
Lila gets drunk and she can't find her key, so they end up in Phoebe's room. And then Lila drunkenly admits to finding Jim attractive
Mhm.
and like tells about like the dream that she had about him.
Yep.
Then Lila also says to Phoebe that maybe you should be with Gary,
Yep.
but doesn't follow anything up and with anything after. And Phoebe's like, so do you want to marry Gary? And Lila's like, I don't want to not marry Gary. I don't want to be alone. And Phoebe's like, well, nobody can take care of you the way you need to take care of yourself. It's your job to take care of yourself like that. Then Lila shouts that she doesn't want to marry Gary. I'm like, girl, you should have figured this out before your wedding week, but whatever. But Phoebe's like, all right, we'll tell people in the morning, like, not right now, just go to sleep. And I was like, I don't snore, so it's okay. Like, we can sleep here. But she does snore. So Phoebe's like, I'm going to find the key and get out of here. Like, I can't do this.
Mhm.
And so she's in the bridal suite. And then lo and behold, a Gary comes to see his bride to be. And it's Phoebe instead.
And they have a conversation about his first wife, the one that Lila gets upset when they talk about, and how he ended up at the gallery where he met Lila. And then he also tells Phoebe that like she's really easy to talk to and he can tell her anything, everything. And Phoebe just kind of like allows herself to think about how Lila just said that like she didn't want to marry Gary and how the wedding will be called off and how she can't wait to reach out and like touch his beard and like I don't know, she like has these like conflicting feelings and I think that that's again what I loved about this book was how complex and layered all of these situations are. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
nuanced. There's a lot of and all of them like kind of suck a little bit.
Yeah.
But she ends up sending him off to his room and thinks about him that night. The next day, she's out for the count. You know, she got a little too drunk, so she skips out on surfing lessons. She planned it for Juice, but she sends Phoebe in her stead.
Yep. So Lila doesn't like mention anything about the night before with not wanting to marry Gary, and she's just upset that she ate cabbage. Like, why did anybody let me eat cabbage? And so the surfing lesson, Gary, Phoebe, and Juice all survive, and Juice loved it. And they're having lunch after, and Phoebe describes their laughter as like a warm sweater. And she feels at home around this restaurant table with the two of them, which I'm like, okay, let's just go this route, people. And later that day, Jim, who's the best man, I believe, and Phoebe, who's the maid of honor, we now are assuming, they take an edible and talk about their wedding speeches they have to write. And then Jim opens up how he actually liked Lila first. And so Phoebe goes back to her room, and now she's like not only inspired to write this speech, but also like sends this message about becoming a winter keeper in the area that they're at. So to
Yep.
like start a new venture.
Which is really cool that like you know we're seeing her shift in real time because obviously she came with very stark intentions and very like dark thoughts kind of clouding her and I feel like there's a line specifically that I wanted to talk about because like I was just thinking about this with her decision to stay here and like do something for herself. There's a line in It's Time to Go where it says 20 years at your job, then the son of the boss gets the spot that was yours, or trying to stay for the kids when keeping it how it is will only break their hearts worse. And like she wanted to keep like the status quo within her relationship and she didn't want to rock the boat with Matt with like their situation. You know, she was arguably more talented and intelligent than Matt when it came down to it, but his career trajectory was the one that mattered. And so
Mm-hmm.
like she even though she was just as qualified, like he was getting all these accolades. Like I just I feel like that moment that shifted
Mm-hmm.
when she said, maybe I'll stay out this way. Maybe I'm going to do something here. Is
Yep.
that moment where she was like it is time to go. It's time to like to give up and step out, but not give up in the way she originally intended, but
Mm-hmm.
give up in the way of like I'm going to shed everything that I came with and start somewhere new.
Yep. And just like choose that happiness for herself. Like, because
Yes.
in happiness, it talks about like, I haven't met that reinvention. Where is it? like in the disbelief, I can't face reinvention. I haven't met the new me yet. And I feel like that's when she like accepts like, I'm going to, this new me, but it's really me. But it's just like how she's reinventing herself there.
Yeah.
So Lila again is like, I'm too busy to run errands. And Gary apparently hurt his back. So Phoebe goes with Gary to run some wedding errands. And they do stop by like the house that she applied for, like the winter keeper position. Then they go to the tailor, they go to his office, they go to the barber. And like the barber's like just assumes that Phoebe and Gary are together because their vibes right there. And Gary again says that like Phoebe is so easy to talk to and they feel so drawn to her. But like Phoebe is like, you are still getting married. Like we are not continuing this conversation. Like pause. Like I don't know what's going on here. And so we fast forward to the rehearsal dinner that night. And of course, the timeline is not living up to Lila's expectations. She's like, this is not working. So they cut the speeches. But Jim decides to still give his. And oh boy, he makes a scene.
Was that a speech? Was that ever a speech?
Yeah. Yeah, just Jim. Whatever, Jim. Okay. Anyway. And then poor Juice gets drunk and she like misses her mom and Phoebe just kind of helps take care of that. And Matt arrives.
Of
you know,
course he
ex-husband
fucking does.
Matt?
The one who
No,
was
thank
like,
you.
hey, I'm in love with this other woman who's married to another man. We're going to be together forever. Bye. So now Matt's there. Everything's a disaster. The morning of the actual wedding, Phoebe lets the stylist cut her hair. Side bang. She's like reinventing herself. And Lila this day says, nothing is going to ruin my wedding, which might be her famous last words. So, you know, she thought for 2 years that something was going to ruin her wedding. She was completely certain about that. And she should have remained certain about that because God forbid what happens is there's an ordinary black town car that replaced the fucked convertible that she had, you know, and they had to get a new car. And then she demands a new car. And Phoebe actually tells her no. Like, she's the bride. It doesn't matter what she shows up in as long as she shows up. And it seems like Lila is trying to find ways to self-sabotage the wedding that is happening. And because of this, Lila actually has the realization that her and Gary don't love each other the way that they should be loved. She makes the decision to not get in the car and asks Phoebe what she should do. And Phoebe just tells her, you're going to go upstairs and take a very long bath.
Yep. And they also say that Lila's now free to go anywhere. And she's like, Canada it is. And Pauline at the front desk is like, all right, I'll make the reservation. You got it.
Yep.
And something I like that the book talks about too is how like weddings are a waste, but it also will never be a waste.
Yeah.
And just like another book I just read too is just about how like nothing's a waste of time if it's what you're like wanting to do. Like, and so I feel like that's like with weddings, right? Is like there's a lot of money that you could be spending on something practical. Yeah. But like without Lila's wedding, like Phoebe might not be here. So just kind of both sides of the coin, which I think is interesting. So Phoebe gets in the car and heads to the wedding venue and is like, sorry, guys, the wedding's off. And on the way back to the hotel, she's like, Matt, I'm not going back home with you. Like, I'm staying here.
Correct.
Like, bye. Boy, bye. And we didn't talk a lot about Matt because, like, one, he's not worth it. Two, like, it's just he tries to come back and no.
Like, it just, he didn't need to do that, you know? And I think, you know, he was worried about her and blah, blah, blah. But, like, he was, like, attempting to, like, get her back, which, like, you don't come back from that. And there's the post-chorus that I was kind of talking about earlier, and It's Time to Go, which is sometimes giving up is the strong thing, sometimes to run is the brave thing, sometimes walking out is the one thing that will find you the right thing. And Phoebe and Matt's marriage dissolving, and then her stepping out with obviously negative intention at first, but now she's realizing that like walking out to this place with like the wedding people and meeting everyone that's here, even as wacky as Lila is, even as crazy as that week leading up to the wedding has been, it's the right thing now. Like, she has a complete fresh start. She's going to find herself. She's going to find her purpose again. And no matter how hard it is, no matter how strong and brave she had to be through it, she knew that it was time to go. And it just made it like hit a little bit harder.
The day after the wedding, like Phoebe's decided that she's staying to be the winter keeper at this place, and the wedding day after wedding brunch, right? The day after whatever you want to call it. Since it was paid for, the hotel brings out brunch for the wedding people, and Juice ends up making a comment that like Lila left because of her, and Phoebe's like, no, it's not because of you. Like, don't worry. And Gary's not at the brunch. Like, obviously Lila's in Canada and Gary's not there. And Phoebe texts Gary, like, you should know that the family's telling stories about you right now, because they're all just like talking about Gary and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And then Phoebe says goodbye to everybody. And then Phoebe goes to Marshall's to get luggage because she didn't bring anything with her. So she needs something. And Gary finally texts her back, and she asked him, where are you? And he said, in the hot tub. And she said, don't move. And so she meets up with Gary in the hot tub where they met. And he like tells her kind of like what happened, like from his point of view. And so I guess Lila like told him everything and how she'd been interested in Jim first, but Gary was there and Gary was like the safe bet and all of that. And Gary didn't know what to do. So he actually went to the cemetery to be with his first wife, which I thought was sweet. And he said he like wanted to find Phoebe, but he was like, that might be a little weird. Like, we just met, like, I'll go. And then they kind of just like leave it at that. And Gary like tells like Phoebe to call him if she finds any ghosts in the place that she's the winter keeper.
Yep.
And that's how it ends. Just Phoebe reinventing herself and finding that happiness again.
I just I remember talking about this the first time, and like I felt like, so what we used to do was that we would not talk to each other about song choices, and we would like, it would be a surprise. And as soon as we both said ours, we were like, that makes so much sense. And like, I feel like those two songs truly encompass what the wedding people.
Yeah, I'm so glad we decided to talk about this book again, though. It was so fun to revisit it, and I remember so much about it, and I might have to reread it again this year.
I know. This would be a fun one to go back and revisit like all the way through.
Thank you all for turning the pages with us this week. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, and join our newsletter to keep up with everything on the other side of the page.
Yes, and please, please, please drop a review and a 5-star rating of the podcast on your preferred platform and share us with your bookish besties.
Next week, we are taking a spring break, but we are not leaving you hanging because we are re-releasing one of our previous episodes where we talk about We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver.
Yes, we sincerely hope that you listen to one of our favorite episodes and books we have ever covered between both of the podcasts in preparation for the release of his next book, The Caretaker, which we are actually covering on Wednesday, April 22nd. That's our first episode back from our little mini spring break. So you get double Marcus Cleaver, and we hope you like horror, because when I tell you that we live for it,
yes,
we live for this one. So everyone, enjoy your little break, catch up on that episode, and forever and always,
keep reading with kindness.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.